Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today our topic of discussion is adrenocortical insufficiency. So what is adrenocortical insufficiency? It is inadequate secretion or reduced secretion of adrenal hormones from the adrenal gland. These are cortisol, aldosterone and androgens. These are the hormones which are released from the adrenal gland. If their levels are reduced, it means there is adrenal insufficiency. So it has a classification: primary, secondary and tertiary adrenocortical insufficiency. In primary adrenal insufficiency, the pathology lies within the adrenal gland. When the pathology lies within the adrenal gland, there is reduced amount of cortisol is released from the adrenal gland. Due to this reduced production or reduced amount of cortisol, feedback mechanism occurs, and due to this feedback mechanism and reduced cortisol causes increased amount of ACTH and increase amount of CRH in the blood. When the pathology lies primarily within the adrenal gland, along with the cortisol, other hormones like aldosterone and androgens are also reduced. Androgens are also reduced because these are also released from the adrenal gland. So reduced cortisol, aldosterone and androgen leads to increased production of ACTH because of feedback mechanism and increased levels of CRH. This is primary adrenal insufficiency. Remember, primary adrenal insufficiency is also called Addison's disease. Remember, this is very important, that it is also called Addison's disease. Now come to the causes of primary adrenal insufficiency. In the Western world, the most common cause is autoimmune. This cause is common in Western countries. While in Pakistan, India and Bangladesh, these are the Asian countries, here the tuberculosis is the most common cause in Asian countries. Other causes are bilateral adrenalectomy, Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome. This is basically a Neisseria meningitis infection in which meningococcal sepsis occur. In this case, intra-adrenal hemorrhage may occur, and due to this, loss of function of adrenal gland occurs. And the other causes are lymphoma, amyloidosis and hemochromatosis, in which iron levels are more in the blood and in the body. Other are metastatic tumors, especially the lungs and breast cancer. Metastasis occurs in the adrenal gland, and when this metastatic tumors enter into the adrenal gland, and these adrenal glands become non-functional. And the other causes are HIV and some drugs like ketoconazole and metapyrone. These are synthetic inhibitors of cortisol. These drugs also reduces the level of cortisol and ultimately leads to adrenal insufficiency. Now come to the secondary adrenal insufficiency. In secondary adrenal insufficiency, the cause or the pathology is not in the adrenal gland, but pathology lies here in the pituitary gland. Due to the pathology in the pituitary gland, there is decreased production of ACTH. This decreased production of ACTH leads to decreased levels of cortisol. And remember that the aldosterone levels are normal in secondary adrenal insufficiency, while cortisol levels and androgens are low in amount in secondary adrenal insufficiency. While due to the feedback mechanism, cortisol levels are low and ACTH levels are low because of pathology. So decreased cortisol leads to increased amount of CRH in the blood. Now come to the causes of secondary adrenal insufficiency. The most common cause in 99% of the cases of secondary adrenal insufficiency is sudden withdrawal of corticosteroids or glucocorticosteroids. These are commonly used in asthmatic patients, in post-transplant patients, in autoimmune disorders. So when you stop the drugs suddenly, it may lead to secondary adrenal insufficiency because of suppression, because of feedback mechanism. When the patient is continuously taking the corticosteroids, there is decreased amount of ACTH in the body because of excessive steroids in the body when the patient is taking iatrogenically prescribed by the doctors. because of decreased ACTH, and when you suddenly withdraw the drugs, cortisol levels are also reduced. So decreased ACTH and decreased cortisol leads to secondary adrenal insufficiency in case of sudden withdrawal of steroids. This is most common cause of secondary adrenal insufficiency, and the other causes are Sheehan syndrome, means postpartum necrosis of pituitary gland, and empty sella turcica syndrome. Now come to the tertiary adrenal insufficiency. Here the pathology lies in the hypothalamus, and the other glands are working normally. Due to reduced CRH from the hypothalamus, which leads to decreased amount of ACTH release from the pituitary gland, and ultimately reduced level of cortisol. In the hypothalamic diseases, the tertiary adrenal insufficiency may occur. Now come to the clinical features of adrenal insufficiency. There are various features. Some features are because of decreased cortisol, and some features are because of decreased aldosterone, and some are because of decreased androgens. So let's start one by one. In the reduced amount of cortisol, anorexia, vomiting, and diarrhea may occur in the patient, and all these are the features of GIT leads to weight loss of the patient. Because of continuous loss of electrolytes in vomiting and diarrhea, weight loss may occur, as well as hypoglycemia may occur due to reduced cortisol. As we know that the cortisol is gluconeogenic hormone. When there is reduced amount of cortisol, hypoglycemia, that is reduced amount of glucose in the body, which leads to dizziness and fainting in the patient. And the other feature is postural hypotension. As we know that the cortisol is a stress hormone, it releases in fight or flight response. So when the cortisol levels are low, it may leads to postural hypotension. And the other feature is hyponatremia, that is reduced amount of sodium in the blood, reduced sodium levels, hyponatremia. But this hyponatremia is dilutional. It means that when there is a reduced amount of cortisol, it ultimately increases the ADH levels and water retention in the body. As a result, dilutional hyponatremia may occur. And the last feature of cortisol reduced is hypercalcemia. When there is hypercalcemia because of decreased excretion from the kidneys, as well as shifting of calcium from bones into the extracellular fluid, in shifting of bones into the extracellular fluid leads to hypercalcemia. So these are the features of reduced amount of cortisol or cortisol insufficiency. Now come to the features of aldosterone insufficiency. The first feature is hyponatremia. When there is reduced amount of sodium, water osmotically follows this. Sodium is excreted in the kidneys and into the urine in very high amount, so the body's sodium level is reduced. Due to this reduced sodium, hypotension or decreased blood pressure may develop in these patients, as well as which leads to circulatory shock in severe cases. So it may lead to shock. And the other feature is hyperkalemia, that is increased amount of potassium. These all are the features which are actually the opposite to the function of aldosterone. Because of reduced aldosterone, these features may develop in the adrenal insufficiency. In hyperkalemia, increased amount of potassium leads to muscle spasticity of muscles, as well as cramps. Muscular cramps may occur because of hyperkalemia. And the other feature is metabolic acidosis. When there is reduced aldosterone, H positive retention in the body may occur, which leads to metabolic acidosis in the body. And when there is reduced amount of androgens in adrenal insufficiency, it may cause hair loss of the body, as well as reduced or decreased libido, as well as infertility problems in female. These reduced androgens may not cause the problems in male, because of the major androgen in male is testosterone, which is released from the testicles. Now come to the causes. When the primary adrenal insufficiency, there is reduced amount of cortisol. There is, because the pathology lies within the adrenal gland, so there is reduced amount of cortisol, reduced or decreased amount of aldosterone, as well as reduced amount of androgens. But remember, in the secondary adrenal insufficiency, cortisol levels are low, while the aldosterone levels are normal. This point is very important, that in secondary adrenal insufficiency, the aldosterone levels are normal because the aldosterone is regulated by renin angiotensin aldosterone axis. It does not depend on the ACTH for its production. So in the secondary adrenal insufficiency, aldosterone levels are normal, as well as androgens levels are reduced. Remember, the important point here is that the increased amount of ACTH in primary adrenal insufficiency, which is Addison's disease. In the Addison's disease, there is increased ACTH. When there is increased ACTH in the primary adrenal insufficiency because of feedback mechanism, this increased ACTH stimulate the melanocortin receptors. When it stimulates the melanocortin receptors, it causes the hyperpigmentation of skin of the palmar creases and the elbow and the knee. These are the pressure areas where hyperpigmentation may develop because of increased ACTH levels in primary adrenal insufficiency, while this is not the feature of secondary adrenal insufficiency. Now come to the diagnosis of adrenal insufficiency. Check the cortisol levels. If the cortisol levels are normal, that is more than 500 nanomole per liter, then consider another diagnosis. But when the levels of cortisol are low, then perform the ACTH stimulation test. This is called synecthin test. In this test, intramuscular 250 microgram dose of synecthin is infused, which is synthetic ACTH. When this ACTH is infused, then after that measure the levels of cortisol. If cortisol after the ACTH stimulation test are still low, normal individuals, after infusion of ACTH, cortisol becomes high because of hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. But in this test, if after the ACTH stimulation cortisol levels still remains low, it means that the patient has adrenal insufficiency. So after that, decreased cortisol confirms that the patient has adrenal insufficiency. Now check the ACTH levels in order to differentiate between whether the adrenal insufficiency is primary or it is secondary, means it is Addison's disease or the pathology lies in pituitary gland. As we know previously, we have discussed that increased ACTH in primary adrenal insufficiency. So check the ACTH levels. If ACTH levels are above normal, it means that the patient has primary adrenal insufficiency or the pathology lies within the adrenal gland. But if the ACTH levels are below normal, it means that the pathology lies in pituitary, and this ACTH level leads to decreased cortisol, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, remember. After the checking ACTH levels, come to the mineralocorticoid assessment. Check the aldosterone levels. If the aldosterone levels are below normal, it means that the patient has primary adrenal insufficiency. As we have discussed previously, that when the pathology lies within the adrenal gland, aldosterone is also reduced. Due to this reduced aldosterone, renin-angiotensin system gets stimulated and it increases the levels of renin in the blood. So reduced aldosterone, increased renin give the clues that the patient has adrenal insufficiency of primary origin. Now if the aldosterone and renin are normal, it means that the patient has secondary adrenal insufficiency. After differentiating between the adrenal insufficiency of primary or secondary origin, find out the underlying cause. Check the autoantibodies level in the blood. If autoantibodies are normal, then perform the CT or MRI of the adrenal gland and then perform the X-ray and ultrasound abdomen to rule out the TB, because in the TB patients the calcification of adrenal gland may occur, and this leads to the non-functional behavior of adrenal gland because of the calcification in the TB patients. And if the high risk area, if the patient of the adrenal insufficiency is living in the high risk area of HIV, then check the investigations for HIV as well. When the cause is secondary, check the other pituitary hormones level and perform the MRI of the pituitary gland to rule out the where actually the pathology is. Now last but not least, come to the management of adrenal insufficiency. Give the patients, as we know that the glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids and androgens are reduced, so give the patients step by step glucocorticoids, hydrocortisone. Give the patient hydrocortisone 15 to 20 mg per day. This is the dose, normal physiologic dose. Give the patient 10 mg in the morning, 10 mg in morning, and 5 mg at 3 p.m. of hydrocortisone. If the patient is gaining weight after the few weeks of glucocorticoid therapy, it means you are overdosing the patient because the patient has developed the feature of Cushingoid syndrome. And if the hyperpigmentation still persists after the glucocorticoid therapy, it means the dose of hydrocortisone is inadequate to replace the glucocorticoids. Now come to the mineralocorticoid therapy. Fludrocortisone, it is basically a mineralocorticoid agonist. Fludrocortisone should be given 0.05 to 0.15 mg per day. And then check the blood pressure, the electrolytes, the electrolytes and renin levels to assess that whether the mineralocorticoids are working or not. Remember, the most important point is, when in the secondary adrenal insufficiency, there is no need of mineralocorticoids or fludrocortisone or aldosterone, because in the secondary adrenal insufficiency, as we have discussed previously, the levels of aldosterone are normal. So only in the Addison's disease, replacement of mineralocorticoid is necessary. Now come to the androgens. DHEAS, dehydroepiendotestosterone. It is a female androgen. It is given in the female patients with adrenal insufficiency, but it is not necessary in male. In male it is not given because the testosterone is the major androgen which is produced from the testicles in male. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will discuss the adrenal crisis, which is a very short topic, in the next video. Thank you so much.